Are fighting the plan, and so far 35 House members have signed a letter opposing the deal. Vermont Congressman Peter Welch is leading that effort, and he's our guest next. Congressman, so nice of you to join us today.
Thank you.
So, Congressman Welch, there's a lot to this framework of this compromise. What specifically do you not like about it?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, what we did do is abandon a central premise of the Obama campaign, and that was to have those tax cuts at the very high end expire. And why is that important? It's not about bashing the rich. It's about not burdening our kids with debt, because that whole tax cut is paid for on the credit card. It's really something we should have fought. The president left the field, reached a negotiation in the 7th inning. We should have hung in there for the 9th inning. The second issue is this is now being turned into a stimulus program, essentially by tax breaks. You know, we've got to start building things in America. Should we be borrowing more, or we should be building more? At the end of the day, on the stimulus, you won't have 1 new mile of broadband. You won't have 1 new bridge constructed. You won't have 1 new high-speed rail car on the line. And we need that building if we're going to revive the American middle class and working-person economy.
So what would get you on board? What specifically would change your mind? And in the effort for compromise before the end of the year, is there something that you specifically would like to see that you would say, okay, we'll take this for now and some of these temporary extensions for upper income earners?
I actually don't. This was negotiated between the president, basically, and the Senate leadership. And one of the frustrations I think a lot of folks have is that the American people are with the president on his tax policy, extending the middle-class tax cuts. The majority of the Senate was with the president, but the Senate leadership was able to use the filibuster to block it. And what we believe is that the Senate should have required a vote, a vote, a vote. Keep going back, because the American people have to get engaged. They do not want this debt, especially if it's to pay for tax cuts that we don't need, won't help the economy, and we certainly can't afford. They should have stayed in session until Christmas or until New Year's if that's what it took. This is profoundly important.
I apologize to jump in. We just have a limited time, and I just wanted to ask you about some of the tone that we're hearing, because our viewers are really much paying attention to that, to some of the, well, I guess you could call it name-calling that's going on. Republicans being referred to as hostage takers, being referred to as negotiating with terrorists. And I was just curious, do you agree with that characterization? And do you think that's helpful?
I don't agree with the characterization, and I don't think it's helpful. I mean, we have a legitimate debate in this country. What we've done during the Bush years, basically, is put everything on the credit card. We went from a record surplus under the Clinton years and 20 million new jobs to a record deficit and loss of 8 million jobs. And the policy of the Republicans, explicitly, is to try to squeeze government by raising the debt. And it puts us in a fiscal straitjacket. They did it with the Bush tax cuts, the 2 wars, the Medicaid prescription drug program, and now we're doing it again. You know, the Fiscal Commission last week, said we've got to make tough choices to try to bring this budget in balance. The first thing we did was add $900 billion to the deficit. And that's going to put us in a fiscal straitjacket, and I think also be a political loser.
And Congressman, that's something our viewers are paying attention to very much, this issue about debt. How has your opinion of the president changed over the last few days based on what you've seen?
Well, see, I respect the president. I disagreed with his decision to reach this agreement in the 7th inning. But the president, I think, is mindful of the economy, and he's got real responsibilities. He made the call as best he can. But I would have much preferred that we hung in there until the 9th inning. And also, we have got to get the American people engaged. And I think that if we had repeated votes in the Senate where they had to say, Mitch McConnell and others, that we will, in fact, not let you have a tax cut if you're a middle-income American unless we have tax cuts on the credit card for the very wealthy, I think the people would have been with the president on that. So that's a policy question. It's not about name-calling. It's about making a decision that's fundamentally important for America's future.
There's a lot of policy involved, and there's certainly a lot of personality as well when we talk about this, Congressman. I really appreciate having your perspective today, sir. Thank you. We look forward to talking.